Classifications are very important. Whether it's buying a shirt, small, medium, large, XL, or buying a car or a shoe, we need good, proper classifications. Let's try to understand the classifications of equity mutual funds. Today, there are so many mutual funds: large cap, mid cap, small cap, multi caps, flexi caps, value, dividend yield, sectorial funds, and it's very difficult to understand what are these funds and what do they stand for. So let's understand, first of all, what do we mean when we say large cap stocks or mid cap stocks or small cap stocks before understanding the classification. So large cap stocks are those stocks which, as per full market capitalization, the top 100 stocks are called as large caps. The next 150 stocks based on full market capitalization are called as mid caps. So from 101st stock to 250th stock, it's called as mid cap. And the next 250 stocks based on full market capitalization are called as small caps. That means from the 251st stock to the 500th stock is basically called as small caps. So now you know the top 100 large caps, the next 150 mid caps, and the last 250 are called as small cap funds. Once you have understood this, now let's try to understand the classifications of various types of equity mutual funds. The first basic category, large cap funds. A typical large cap fund, as per SEBI definition, needs to have at least 80% of its allocation to large cap stocks. Second, mid cap funds. A mid cap fund also needs to invest only into mid caps. At least 65% of the portfolio should be into mid cap stocks, mid cap category stocks. 35% they can deviate from the mid cap category. Small cap stocks or small cap funds. A small cap fund also needs to invest at least 65% of its allocation to small cap stocks. 35% they can deviate, but at least 65 have to be in small cap stocks. So large, mid and small, these are three categories of fund. Now coming to the fourth category, called as Flexi Cap Fund. A very interesting category. It's basically like a balanced diet. It has large cap, mid cap and small cap, all three in one fund. The advantage of this fund is that a fund manager has complete flexibility to decide how much allocation to be there in large cap, mid cap and small cap. So if in case a fund manager is more bullish on large caps, he can have higher allocation, and vice versa, if he is more bullish on mid cap and small cap, he can increase or decrease weights. Flexi cap funds. Now, in the similar way, there is a fund called as multi-cap category. What is multi-cap? Even multi-cap has large cap, mid-cap and small cap in its portfolio, like a balanced diet. But in a multi-cap fund, a fund manager has to always maintain 25% at least in large cap, 25% in mid cap and 25% in small cap fund. That's by definition, that's what a fund manager always has to maintain at any given point of time. So how is multi-cap different from flexi-cap? Flexi-cap, a fund manager has complete discretion to decide the weight, but in multi-cap, the weights of large, mid and small should be at least 25%. The remaining allocation a fund manager can decide based on his view. Now let's try to understand the next category, focused fund. Focused, by name it explains that the portfolio is focused, it's concentrated. The number of stocks in the portfolio cannot exceed in a focused fund more than 30 stocks. So any focused fund will have maximum 30 stocks in its portfolio. A fund manager can build a concentrated portfolio of 20 stocks, 25 stocks, 28 stocks, but maximum what he can keep is 30 stocks. What categorization of stocks a fund manager wants to choose, large, mid, small or a mix of that, depends upon a fund manager. And it's very important to understand the thought process of a fund manager when selecting a focused fund. Now let's come to the next category, which is called as large and mid cap. These names are self-explanatory. In a large and mid cap fund, as per SEBI definition, as per SEBI classification, the fund should have at least 35% into large caps and at least 35% in mid cap stocks. The remaining allocation the fund manager can invest based on their view and the thought process of the fund. Now, there is also another new category called as value category. It's also a AMC or a mutual fund can have either a value fund or they can have a contra fund. They cannot have both. So what is a value fund? A value fund is a fund where a fund manager builds his portfolio on the principles of value investing or investing into value stocks. Now let's come to the next category called as a dividend yield fund, a dividend yield category. In this, at least 65% of the portfolio should be invested into stocks and companies which are dividend yielding companies or high dividend yielding companies. Remaining 35% of the portfolio, a fund manager can deviate, but at least 65 should be in high dividend yielding stocks. Next category, which is a very interesting category called as ELSS, Equity Linked Savings Scheme. It's like any normal equity mutual fund, but the advantage in an ELSS is that we all know in Section 80C, there are various instruments like a PPF, insurance, and an ELSS which can provide you tax saving. So an ELSS fund provides you the benefit of Section 80C. It helps you save tax. The lock-in in these funds is 3 years. That's the minimum lock-in, which when an investor is investing is a 3-year lock-in. After 3 years, investor is free to redeem his units. Now let's try to understand the last but not the least category, which is called as sectorial or thematic funds. What are sectoral funds? Like pharma is a sector, or banking is a sector, or IT is a sector. A fund manager can choose to have many sectoral funds. He can also have infrastructure, that's a theme. He can also have theme-based funds. Business cycle, it's a theme. You can have theme-based funds. You can have as many sectoral funds or as many theme-based funds in your portfolio. Example of thematic funds, like an ESG fund, which is focused on environment and governance. So these are ESG funds, or a quant-based funds, thematic-based funds. So these are basically theme-based funds. So this is a category where a fund manager or an AMC can have many categories of sector funds and theme-based funds. This whole classification helps you make good choices when selecting your portfolio. We all know that mid caps are risky, small caps are even more riskier. So once the classification is right, you know which fund to choose from the basket of the offerings of a mutual fund. The most important thing of classification has happened is that earlier, an investor was never aware what are large cap stocks, what are mid cap stocks, or a small cap stock, because everybody had different definitions of large cap, mid cap, and small cap stocks. SEBI has actually categorized and classified what is large, mid, and small, so that ambiguity has gone away. That's first. Second is, there were many funds with different names in the same category. Like an AMC could have like a 2-3 funds in large cap, and it was very difficult to compare funds between AMCs. And it was very difficult for even an investor to pick and choose, because he never understood what this fund actually stood for. Now, because of SEBI classification, a AMC or a mutual fund can have just one fund in one category, which is a very good thing. The number of funds reduce, and it becomes very easy for an investor to choose a fund and also compare the funds between mutual funds. Happy investing, stay invested.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.